My earliest memories aren't the warm ones kids are supposed to hold on to, the ones filled with laughter in the backyard, birthday cakes glowing with candles, or family trips that felt like magic. No, my memories are heavier, clouded by arguments that shook the walls of our small house in Ohio. And the night my dad walked out when I was just 8 years old is the sharpest memory of them all. That night, I remember standing in the hallway in my pajamas, clutching the teddy bear he had given me for my 7th birthday. Mom and Dad were screaming in the living room. I didn't understand half the words they were throwing at each other, but I understood the anger. I understood the pain. And I understood the silence that followed when the door slammed so hard that the picture frame of our last family portrait tilted off balance. I ran into the living room, and all I saw was Mom on the couch, her face red, her eyes swollen, and the front door still swinging shut. Dad's shoes were gone from the rug. His coat was missing from the rack. And just like that, he was gone. I remember tugging on Mom's sleeve, asking, "Where did Dad go? When is he coming back?" She didn't look at me. Her voice was cold, clipped, and sharper than I had ever heard before. "He left, and it's your fault." At 8 years old, those words landed like a thunderbolt. I froze, staring at her, unsure if I had even heard her right. My fault? How could it be my fault? But she didn't stop there. She turned her tear-streaked face toward me and said, "If you hadn't been so difficult, if you hadn't been such a burden, maybe he would have stayed. He was tired of the fighting, tired of everything, and you didn't help. You never helped." I felt my chest tighten, my throat closing up as if I couldn't breathe. My dad leaving was already too much to process, but now, with those words, Mom planted a seed inside me, a seed of guilt that would grow roots deep into my childhood and teenage years. That night, I cried myself to sleep, clutching my teddy bear, whispering apologies into the dark as if my dad could hear me. I told him I was sorry for whatever I had done, for being the reason he walked out, for being the child who ruined everything. The next morning, I thought maybe it was a mistake, maybe Mom would take it back. But she didn't. In fact, she doubled down. She cooked breakfast in silence. Then as she slid the plate in front of me, she muttered, "You better behave from now on. I don't have the energy for another man to leave because of you." From then on, the blame became a constant in my life. It wasn't always said directly, but it was there. In the sighs when I asked for help with homework, in the way she told relatives on the phone that raising me was hard because of what happened with your father, in the cold stares whenever I dared to ask about him. Even my little brother, Jake, who was only 5 at the time, absorbed the story Mom spun. He didn't understand it fully, but he heard the way she'd say things like, "We lost your dad because of your sister." Over time, he began to look at me differently, like I was the villain in our family's story. At school, I carried the blame in silence. None of my teachers or friends knew. I laughed when I was supposed to. I studied hard, and I tried to be the good kid Mom demanded me to be. But inside, every time a father came to a school play, every time I saw a family walking together in the park, every time someone asked, "Where's your dad?" the guilt stabbed at me again. I became obsessed with the idea that if I could just be better, maybe Mom would forgive me. Maybe Dad would come back. I started getting straight A's, doing extra chores, taking care of Jake like I was his second parent. I tried to become perfect, but perfection never seemed to be enough. Mom would always find something wrong. If I cleaned the dishes, she'd point out the one spot I missed. If I got a 98 on a test, she'd ask why it wasn't 100. And whenever she was especially tired or angry, she would say those words again. "If it weren't for you, he'd still be here." Those words haunted me. I started believing them so deeply that they became part of my identity. I wasn't just a kid whose dad left. I was the reason he left. And no matter what I did, I couldn't undo it. As I grew older, the guilt hardened into resentment. Not just toward myself, but toward my dad too. Why hadn't he stayed? Even if I was a burden, even if I made mistakes, wasn't I still his child? Didn't he love me enough to fight for me? And then there was Jake. My little brother grew up idolizing our mother. He believed every word she said, And when he repeated it to me, "You made Dad leave," it cut deeper than anything. Because I wanted him to love me. I wanted to protect him. But he was being taught to hate me. By the time I turned 16, the weight of the blame had shaped every decision I made. I didn't go to parties. I didn't date. I barely let myself have fun, because in the back of my mind, I didn't think I deserved happiness. How could I, when I was the one who destroyed our family? But little did I know, the truth about that night, the truth about why Dad really left was so much darker, so much more complicated, and so much more devastating than anything Mom ever told me. And when I finally uncovered it, years later, it didn't just break my heart, it shattered the foundation of our entire family. By the time I entered high school, my life had already been shaped by the shadow of blame. Every choice, every thought, every interaction was filtered through the belief that I was the reason my father had abandoned us. It wasn't just something Mom reminded me of on her worst days. It had become the core of who I thought I was. I would walk into classrooms and sit quietly, never drawing too much attention, always afraid that if I stood out too much, I would somehow make things worse. Teachers praised me for being mature for my age, but really, it was just survival. I had to be mature because I couldn't afford to cause more problems. At home, things were no easier. Mom had built herself into this image of a single, struggling mother who had been wronged by a husband who left her. To the outside world, she was a hero. At church, people would pat her shoulder and say, "You're so strong, raising two kids all by yourself." And she'd smile, say dramatically, and say, "It's hard, especially with everything that happened. But I do what I can." I hated those moments. Not because people admired her strength, but because I knew what she left unsaid, that the everything that happened was me. She never told people outright in public that I was the reason Dad left, but the way she spoke, the way she looked at me, it was like I was the unspoken truth hanging in the air. Jake, my little brother, had started to grow into a mirror of her. He was charming, funny, the golden boy of our little household. Mom adored him, spoiled him in ways I couldn't even imagine. If he wanted something, she'd make it happen. New sneakers, game consoles, field trips, Jake got it all. And me? I was the reminder of her pain. If I asked for new clothes, she'd say, "You have enough. Don't be selfish." If I asked for help with a project, she'd snap, "Figure it out yourself. I don't have time to hold your hand." It wasn't just neglect, it was intentional. Jake noticed the difference too, and he played into it. He'd whisper things when Mom wasn't looking, little digs meant to hurt. "You know Mom only keeps you around because she has to, right?" Or, "If Dad ever comes back, he's probably just coming for me." At first, I thought he didn't mean it. He was younger, repeating things he didn't understand. But as we got older, his words became sharper, more deliberate. By the time he was 12 and I was 15, he had learned exactly how to wound me, and he enjoyed it. Still, I tried to protect him. I made his lunches when Mom was too tired. I helped him with homework when he got stuck. I sat through his little league games and cheered for him even when Mom didn't show up. Because no matter how much he hurt me, he was still my brother. And some part of me still clung to the hope that one day, he'd see me differently. School became my only escape, though even that felt like walking on eggshells. I poured myself into academics. Straight A's weren't just a goal, they were survival. I believed that if I excelled enough, maybe Mom would finally see me as something more than a mistake. Maybe she'd realize I was worth keeping around. But perfection had a cost. I didn't have many friends. I turned down invitations to parties, skipped after school hangouts, and stayed up late working on essays that were already perfect hours earlier. People started calling me a try-hard, and maybe they were right. But they didn't know the truth, that I wasn't chasing grades, I was chasing love. There were moments, though, tiny cracks in Mom's armor that made me question everything. Once, when I was 13, I overheard her on the phone late at night. Her voice was low, urgent, and full of anger. "You don't get to walk away like you're the victim," she hissed into the receiver. "You know what you did. You know why you left." I froze outside her door. My heart pounded as I pressed my ear closer. I wanted so badly to hear the rest, to know what she was talking about. But before I could, the floor creaked under my weight and she snapped, "I'll call you back." The silence that followed was deafening. I tiptoed back to my room, my mind racing. For the first time, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't telling the truth. But then the guilt came crashing back. What if I was just trying to convince myself I wasn't the problem? What if I was rewriting history to make myself feel better? So I buried the thought. I buried it deep, like I buried every doubt, every dream, every part of myself that didn't fit into the mold mom created for me. But the older I got, the harder it became to ignore. There were too many cracks in her story. Too many things that didn't add up. Why did she never let me see Dad, even on birthdays or holidays? Why did she always get so angry when I mentioned him? And why, if it was truly my fault, did she sound so guilty when she thought no one was listening? The questions ate at me, quietly at first, then louder and louder as the years went by. Until finally, when I was 17, the truth came crashing down on me in a way I never expected. It started with a letter I wasn't supposed to find. A letter hidden in the bottom of an old drawer, written in my father's handwriting. And that letter changed everything. It happened on an ordinary Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where sunlight spilled through the blinds in narrow stripes, dust floating lazily in the air. Mom had gone out grocery shopping with Jake, and for once, I had the house to myself. I wasn't looking for anything. Honestly, I was just bored. I wandered into Mom's room, a space she usually kept off limits, and started flipping through old photo albums. Most of them were stage smiles, birthday cakes, Christmas mornings, the occasional vacation to the lake. But in every single one, there was a glaring absence. Dad. My chest tightened as I flipped faster, searching, desperate. He wasn't in any of them after I turned 8. It was like he had been erased. Like he had never existed. That was when I noticed the drawer. It was the bottom drawer of her dresser, half stuck, the wood swollen with age. Something about it felt different. Almost forbidden. I pulled at it until it creaked open, revealing a mess of papers, receipts, and old bills. I shuffled through them carelessly at first, just junk. But then I saw it, an envelope. Yellowed with age, tucked so deep it had been forgotten. My name was scrawled on the front in messy handwriting. Not Mom's. Dad's. My hands shook as I pulled it out. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I just sat there, staring at it. After years of silence, after years of Mom insisting he wanted nothing to do with me, here was proof. Proof he had written to me. Proof he hadn't just disappeared. I tore it open. Inside was a folded letter, ink slightly smudged, but still legible. My eyes scanned the words, and with every line, my world tilted further and further off its axis. "Sweetheart," it began. "If you're reading this, then somehow this letter found its way to you. I need you to know something important. I never left because of you. I would never leave because of you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." I blinked hard, the words blurring through tears. My heart raced as I kept reading. "Things between your mom and me were complicated. More complicated than you could ever understand at 8 years old. She didn't want you to know the truth, but I couldn't leave without trying to tell you somehow. I don't know if she'll let this reach you, but I'm writing it anyway. The night I left, it wasn't because of anything you did. It was because of something she did." My hands trembled so violently, I nearly dropped the paper. I swallowed hard, reading the next line. "She lied. She lied to everyone, and she lied to me. I found out about things she had hidden, things she had done, and I couldn't live in that house anymore. I begged her to tell you the truth when you were older, but I don't know if she ever will. Just know this. I love you. I always loved you." And leaving that night broke me too. I couldn't breathe. My eyes darted back to the words, rereading them, desperate to absorb every syllable. My mind screamed questions. What lies? What had she hidden? What had she done that was so terrible it drove him away? The letter ended abruptly, signed only with, "Love always, Dad." I sat on the floor, the paper crumpled in my fists, tears streaking down my cheeks. For nearly 10 years, I had carried the crushing weight of guilt, believing I had driven him away. And in just a few paragraphs, everything I thought I knew shattered. It wasn't me. It was never me. But then, who was it? Who was Mom? I stayed frozen there for what felt like hours, staring at the letter, my body buzzing with a mix of relief, anger, and terror. Relief that I hadn't been the monster Mom made me believe I was. Anger that she had stolen my childhood with her lies. Terror of what else she was hiding. By the time I heard the front door open, I scrambled to shove the letter back in the envelope and bury it under my mattress. My heart pounded as Mom's voice called from the kitchen. "We're home." I wiped my face quickly, forcing myself to smile as Jake bounded into the living room with bags of snacks. Mom followed, her sharp eyes scanning me for something. For a second, I wondered if she could sense it, that I had touched something forbidden, that I now carried a truth she had kept buried. She didn't say anything, though. She just gave me that usual tight-lipped look, the kind that always made me feel smaller than I was, and disappeared into her room. That night, I lay awake in bed, clutching the letter under my pillow. The words played on repeat in my head. "I never left because of you. It was because of something she did." I couldn't unknow it now. I couldn't keep living under her story, under her blame. I needed answers. But answers don't come easily when the person you need them from is the same person who has spent years convincing you of a lie. And the more I pushed, the more I realized that digging into the truth would come at a cost none of us were ready to pay. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a second. The letter sat beneath my pillow, its presence burning into my thoughts like a brand. I kept pulling it out, reading it again and again, as though maybe the words would change or reveal some hidden clue I had missed. But no, it was always the same. Dad hadn't left because of me. He left because of Mom. By morning, my exhaustion was masked by adrenaline. For the first time in years, I felt something stronger than guilt. I felt angry. Furious. 10 years of my life had been built on a lie. 10 years of feeling worthless, unwanted, and broken, and all because of her. But I didn't know how to bring it up. What do you even say to a mother who spent your entire childhood telling you you're the reason your family fell apart? Do you just march into the kitchen, slam the letter on the table, and demand answers? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But fear still had its claws in me. So I waited. For 3 days, I carried the letter in my backpack everywhere I went, school, the library, even to bed. I didn't trust leaving it behind in case she found it. Every time she looked at me, every time she sighed in disappointment or snapped at me for something small, I bit my tongue, knowing I was holding a secret that could blow her entire facade apart. But secrets like that don't stay buried. It happened on the 4th night, during dinner. Jake was talking about some new video game he wanted, and Mom was promising to see what she could do, her tone warm, soft, motherly. Then she turned to me and said, "Why don't you ever ask for anything? You just sit there sulking like the world owes you something." Something inside me snapped. Why would I ask for anything? I shot back, my voice trembling with years of swallowed anger. "You've never given me anything but blame." The room went silent. Jake froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. Mom's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into that familiar look of disdain. "Excuse me," she said. I pulled the letter from my pocket, my hand shaking. "I know the truth, Mom. I found Dad's letter." Her face drained of color. She dropped her fork, the clatter echoing through the room. Jake looked between us, confusion written all over his face. What are you talking about?" she stammered. I slammed the envelope on the table. "You told me he left because of me. That it was my fault. But it wasn't. He said it was because of you. Because of something you did." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. The words poured out of me like poison I had been forced to swallow for a decade. "You let me believe I ruined everything. You made me hate myself. You made Jake hate me too. And it was all a lie. Jake's eyes widened. Wait, what? He grabbed the letter with shaky hands and started reading. His lips moved silently as he traced Dad's words. With every line, his face twisted, confusion turning into shock, then betrayal. Mom reached across the table, trying to snatch it from him, but he pulled back. Is this true? He demanded, his voice trembling. Tell me it's not true. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. Her hands trembled as she tried to speak. That letter, it doesn't mean anything. He was just trying to manipulate you. He left because he was weak. He couldn't handle being a father. Then why didn't you ever let us see him? I shouted, tears streaming down my face. Why did you lie to us? Why did you make me believe it was my fault? Do you have any idea what that did to me? Her voice cracked. Because the truth was worse. The room froze. Even Jake stopped breathing. The truth? I whispered. Mom buried her face in her hands for a moment, and when she looked up, her mask was gone. She looked older, smaller, like she had been carrying a weight even heavier than the one she had placed on me. Your father didn't leave because of you, she said quietly. And he didn't leave just because of me. He left because I caught him. He was cheating. He had been cheating for months. The words hit like a slap. I blinked, trying to process. Cheating? That wasn't in the letter. He lied to me. He lied to us all, she continued, her voice shaking. He had another woman. I found out, and I confronted him. And instead of choosing us, instead of fixing what he broke, he walked out. I felt my stomach twist. My mind raced back to the letter. Things she had done. She lied to everyone. He hadn't mentioned another woman. He hadn't said anything about cheating. He blamed her. Jake looked pale. So, Dad wasn't the victim? You both lied? Mom slammed her fist on the table, startling us. I didn't lie. I protected you. You were just children. How could I tell you your father was a selfish, faithless man who cared more about himself than his family? I shook my head. You didn't protect us. You punished me. You turned me into your scapegoat because you couldn't handle the truth. You destroyed me just so you wouldn't have to face what really happened. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jake stared at the letter, then at Mom, then at me. His face was a storm of emotions: anger, confusion, betrayal. For years, he had worshipped her, believed every word she said. And now, the cracks in her story were wide open. Finally, he whispered, So, who's telling the truth? Him or you? Neither of us answered. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Maybe neither of them were telling the full story. Maybe both of them were hiding pieces. And if I wanted the truth, I couldn't rely on either one. I would have to find Dad myself. Once the storm of that dinner died down, the house fell into a suffocating silence. Mom stopped speaking to me entirely, her eyes hard as stone whenever they landed on me. Jake avoided me too, but not with the same cruel smirks as before. His silence was different now. It was the silence of confusion, of betrayal, of someone whose world had been flipped upside down. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like the villain of our family. Instead, I felt determined. If Mom's story and Dad's story didn't match, if both of them were painting themselves as victims, then I needed to know the truth for myself. So, I started searching. At first, it was simple things. I typed his name into Google. I scrolled through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, anywhere he might still exist. For days, I found nothing. It was like he had erased himself completely after leaving us. But then, one night, I found him. A Facebook account. No profile picture, barely any friends, no posts in years, but it was him. I recognized the birthday listed, the middle name, even the old town he grew up in. My heart raced as I stared at the page. After nearly 10 years, I had found him. My hands trembled as I typed a message. Dad, it's me. I found your letter. I need to know the truth. Please. I didn't expect a reply. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I even wanted one. But the next morning, when I checked my phone, there it was. A reply. I've been waiting for this message for years. My breath caught. I read it again, over and over, my chest pounding. He wanted to talk. We arranged to meet the following weekend at a quiet coffee shop 2 towns over. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't tell Jake. This was mine. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was grayer, his face lined, his shoulders slumped. But his eyes, those same eyes I saw in the mirror every day, lit up the seconds they landed on me. Sweetheart, he whispered, standing so quickly his chair scraped the floor. He wrapped his arms around me, and for a moment, I felt like that 8-year-old again, clutching my teddy bear, waiting for him to come home. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled back and looked him in the eye. Why did you leave? I asked. He sighed, sinking back into his chair. It's not simple. Try me, I said, my voice sharp. Because Mom said you cheated. You said she lied. And I've spent 10 years believing it was my fault. So, which is it? His eyes darkened, and for a moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. She's right about one thing. I did cheat. I'm not proud of it. I was lonely, I was angry, and I made choices that destroyed everything. But she's not innocent either. She lied about money, about things she was hiding from me. She told me she would never forgive me, that she'd make sure you kids hated me if I tried to stay. And I let her. I walked away. The words hung heavy in the air. So you both lied. I whispered, my chest aching. He nodded, tears in his eyes. We both failed you. We failed you and Jake in every possible way. But I need you to believe me when I say, I never left because of you. I loved you. I still love you. I wanted to be there, but your mom made it impossible. And I was too much of a coward to fight. I sat there, stunned. A part of me wanted to scream at him, to throw my coffee in his face and walk out. Another part of me wanted to curl into his arms and never let go. Instead, I said the only thing that came to mind. Do you know what she told me? The night you left? She told me it was my fault. That you left because of me. His face crumpled. No, he whispered. No, God, no. That's not true. I would never. But she did. I cut in, my voice shaking. She let me believe that for 10 years. And Jake believed her too. Do you know what that did to me? Do you know how broken I am because of both of you? Tears streamed down his face as he reached for my hand. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I pulled my hand back. Sorry doesn't erase it. Sorry doesn't give me back the childhood you both stole from me. We sat there in silence for a long time. For once, I felt the power shift. He wasn't the parent, and I wasn't the child anymore. We were just two broken people, staring at the wreckage of what should have been a family. When I finally left, I didn't feel closure. I didn't feel healed. I felt raw, exposed, like someone had ripped open a wound that had only ever scarred over. Back home, Jake was waiting. I don't know how he knew, but he did. He saw me walk through the door and asked, "Did you see him?" I nodded. And I swallowed hard, meeting his eyes. They both lied, Jake. Both of them. He cheated. She covered it up. And we were caught in the middle. Jake's face crumpled. For the first time in years, he didn't look at me with resentment. He looked at me like he finally understood. Like he finally saw the truth. We sat in silence together, two siblings bound by scars, neither of us knowing what came next. Because the truth didn't fix anything. The truth didn't give us back the father we lost or the mother we thought we had. The truth destroyed the story we had lived in for so long leaving nothing but ashes. But maybe, just maybe, in those ashes, Jake and I could build something new. Not a perfect family. Not a healed one. But a real one. And for the first time, I realized that the blame I carried wasn't mine to hold. It never had been. It belonged to them. And now, finally, I was free to let it go.